How long did you know that you didn't want to be a female? You were born Jess, now you're Jax. People don't know what they're supposed to say or what questions to ask or what the right words are, so they just don't talk about it. So let's have that conversation.
Right. Okay.
So trans now is kind of like where gay was 30 years ago. The go-to insult for me as like a young girl was, you're a man.
And how did you feel when they're saying that? Like,
Heartbroke when I made the decision to go back to work after serving 3 years as a female prison officer. It was terrifying. Like, I would rather be on the plane to Iraq. I don't care if you make mistakes or say she or Jess for the rest of my life. I don't care. Just try. As long as no one comes at me in a malicious way, I will talk about anything, because if we don't start having these conversations, how is anyone going to learn? Just let people be, whether they identify as he, she, they, or whatever. Are they hurting you?
Did you feel suicidal in the sense of think about ending your life? First and foremost, welcome, Jax.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you here. How are you? And I mean that because you've had a roller coaster, right? At the time of record, like, we didn't even know if you'd be able to do this. Yeah. So if you want to just maybe tell people, we're obviously referring to your dog, Rambo. You was actually on Lad Bible.
Yeah. We made it onto the French news as well. We did an interview on the French
news.
The French news.
What about local news? Surely you got local news.
Not got on the local news, mate. But
you're just doing all the big ones.
The French news. There was like we did an interview with this news station in France, and watching it back, and they were like putting the French language over me talking.
No way.
I was like, what is going on?
So do you want to just tell people what has actually happened the last few weeks with your dog Rambo?
Basically, anyone who knows me knows that I have two dogs, Rocky and Rambo.
Yeah, and just to say, if anyone listens to your podcast, within 10 seconds, you will have met both dogs.
Yeah.
In fact, the dogs speak more than you,
they're
I think.
A massive amount. Yeah, they're just a massive, because obviously I do my podcast in my house, and they're just involved in so much. So, and they've obviously played a massive part in me and keeping me alive a lot of the time, over the last few years. So, about 3 weeks ago now, she just started throwing up in the night. Like came upstairs, like broke my gate off the stairs that stops them coming up, and was like being sick everywhere, like all over my bed, all over the floor, all downstairs. And I kept letting her outside, and she was just throwing up. So I was up all night with her, just thinking, what is it? So we took her to the emergency vets, and initially thought that she had gastroenteritis, so she was throwing up, and then she was having lots of diarrhea, which had blood in. But they didn't know the initial cause of it, and I still don't, which is the traumatizing bit.
Of course, yeah.
And then as the days gone on, she was like progressively getting worse, and she stopped eating, and she like went really weak. And what had happened was, she'd regurgitated, so she's thrown up, but then they called it like aspirated, so she like swallowed it, and it had all gone down into her lungs, and no one had even known this had happened.
Oh, God. So
obviously she was then getting worse, and what they realised was that had happened, and she'd developed fluid on her lungs, and then obviously developed severe pneumonia.
Gosh.
And so she's a 2-year-old puppy. Like, we couldn't believe that she was getting so ill so quick. And the vets was like, she could not have been any more unlucky. Like, I don't understand how she's caught all this. And they said to us about a week in, and this was, her bills now was coming up to about £11,000-12,000 after a week. And I thought that I would be covered. And then I found out that my insurance only covered me up to £6,000. So I'm then in a situation like, I won't give up on the dog. Like, what's going on?
What do people do if they've not got the money? Like, it just makes you think, because when it's your animal, you love them like a human, right? Or sometimes more.
Yeah.
And I know you was just saying before we started recording, like, your dogs, or you might have said it while we were recording, I don't know if you've already said it. You might have heard this, but you said that they've like saved your life at times. Yeah. That's the relationship you had with them.
Yeah, 100%.
So when you've got that relationship, you will do anything for your dog.
100%.
But if you haven't got the finances,
that's the thing, and that it was terrifying. So I was thinking, like, right, well, I mean, I'll sell my house to save my dog. Like, I 100% I would do that. And I said that to the vets, but they had a conversation with us, like, we need to sort of think about what do we do, because it's going to be a massive financial step going forward.
What were the sort of predicting it could go up to be?
So she was up to about 12 grand a week in, and she was in intensive care now. So that was £1,000 a day to have her in intensive care,
Right.
be on oxygen, be on all the medication and whatever else. So they were having a conversation with us saying we need to think about what to do going forward, because she might have formed an abscess on her lung, and if she does, she'll need surgery, which is another like 10 grand and the recovery and whatever else. Or she might not pull through because her lungs aren't strong enough now anyway, because it caused one lung to completely collapse. So she was trying to breathe out of one, and so I was just gobsmacked. Like, it just come from nowhere. And
yeah, it's a normal day 1 minute, and the next minute
yeah,
you've got
like
all this.
it just slapped me across the face, and I just thought, fuck, like, can I swear on this podcast? Sorry.
You have. You just did. Don't know if you just thought that.
Shall
you
I
said
not
it out
again?
loud. Yeah, of course you can. Say what you want.
And at that point, I was broken out. I was like, I thought she was gonna die. I thought there was nothing I could do anyway. Like, they were going to lose her, and I was heartbroken, thinking I wanted her to die at home. Like, if she's going to die, you know, she's a baby, she's so full of life. And what broke my heart was, if she'd have been older, or, you know, in so much pain and looks like she wanted to give up, I would never have put her through it. But we kept seeing little glimmers of like her wanting to chase leaves when she went for a wee, or like listening to me, like tipping her head when I talk about Rocky, or, you know, grandma and granddads or whatever.
Oh, man.
So, and this is a dog who, like, she's like a human. Like, she wants to live so much, and people listen to this thinking it's just a dog. It's honestly like my kids.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And she wanted to live, and that's what was breaking me. So at that point I was like, right, I'm not leaving. Like, if she dies, then I'm going to be here.
And you actually slept there, didn't you?
Yeah, and if we go home, I'm not going home until she goes home. So I just like plonked myself in the vets. My mum like brought me a quilt, and I was like sleeping for a couple of hours in my car, like say 3 till 5 in the morning. And what I did was I just sat in the waiting room, and every 4 hours when she could come off the oxygen, she came running round. I saw her for 15 minutes. She started eating with me and went for a little wee outside, and she got herself into like this little routine of knowing that I was there. And I believe so much, especially now, in the power of like all my energy going to her, and that love and that hope and that strength, because she got into such a little routine, and no joke, like hour by hour, she just started getting better. Like, she started eating little bits with me. She started being a little bit happier. She started trying to like jog when I was taking her for a wee, and it was literally 15 minutes every 4 hours. Like,
and then with the finances, then you set up a GoFundMe.
Yeah. So obviously I didn't want to actually at first, because I thought, I can't ask people for money. Like, it's my dog, it's my responsibility. I can't do that. And one of my friends convinced me and was like, you need to, like, people want to help. People love animals, you know. If even if like say 5,000 followers on Instagram give you £1, you've got £5 grand. Like,
and people do want to help when people relate to a story.
Oh my God, I'm like blown away. I
think that shows the power of where social media can be used for real
massive.
Good. I believe, is it over 30 grand now you've mentioned?
Yeah, it's gone over 30 grand. So I said to my mum, I was like, I can't think about anything else. I can't do anything else. All my energy needs to be on her and go into her.
Do you know what, as well? That's just such an important point that you've raised, because people talk about, oh, money isn't everything, and like, you know, it's greedy to want money, and don't fixate on money. But it's like, when the shit hits the fan, unfortunately, or fortunately, it's just the reality, we need money. Yeah. Like, if you don't, we talk about health's the number one thing, love's the number one thing, but it's like, if you don't have money, who's going to provide the healthcare? Like, if you don't have money, what's that going to do to your loving relationship? You're going to be frustrated that you can't do stuff. So I think it just sort of illustrates the importance of, you know, being savvy with finances and building wealth and that kind of thing. Because when you're in that position you're in, you don't want to have to worry about money, think about money.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
You just want to be present, doing everything you can, and know that money's not an issue, right?
Yeah, and 100% I would have sold my house. But it's obviously resonated with people and gone crazy like it has. And now, thankfully, it's up to about 30,000, which her vet bills, and luckily she came home, and her vet bills came up to about 20. And now it's just waiting whether she has developed this abscess, because if she will need surgery, then that will take it over that 30,000. But if she doesn't, obviously, touch wood, then that can go to, you know, a charity or something that can help animals in that situation or whatever. But
nice.
It's just a relief. But like I said to you before, those dogs have been by my side through a hell of a lot, especially in the last couple of years. So,
well, let's talk about that. And obviously, I hope everything goes fine with Rambo. keep us posted with
I'm
that.
trying to get Sylvester Stallone, give her a shout out.
I saw that. I actually saw that. I went on the Lab Bible thing. I could see you just like tagging him, like, Sylvester, I need you, man.
I'll do it. I'll make it happen.
Keep going. I love the determination. So you said there the last 2 years, and I didn't realize in terms of, you know, your transition. Obviously, you were born Jess. Now you're Jax. I didn't realize it was only really in the last 2 years that you fully committed to the transition.
Yeah.
Talk to me about your journey. I know this is gonna be a long journey, so I know
if you're happy to listen, that's fine.
we got 6 hours. We haven't. I know that, you know, you might maybe just need to focus on some of the key points, but I love something you did say before we started recording, which is these conversations are so important because people don't know what they're supposed to say or what questions to ask or what the right words are, so they just don't talk about it. And as you said, because people fear getting cancelled or getting sacked at work. So let's have that conversation that people need to be having.
Yeah.
For you, how long did you know that you didn't want to be a female?
I only really realised that this is what I needed to do when I reached about 26, 27 years old. But now, when I look back, and I look back at my childhood, I look back at all the decisions I made, I look back at how I felt, what I did, how I thought.
It's like you joined the dots looking backwards as times were there.
I absolutely knew from being about 4 or 5.
Really?
Because those feelings that you have, or, you know, thinking you're just a tomboy, but there's just certain aspects of it, and having a crippling amount of anxiety about something, but not knowing why, and always wanting to start again and like go and be the real me, or, you know, just sort of causing carnage for my mum and dad, really. Like when I was 14, I convinced them that I wanted to move school for no reason whatsoever. And
what did you think the reason was?
I felt like I just had to start again. For some reason, it would just get in my head, something like that. I think I just
what would be the catalyst to that though? Was there like trouble at school? Was the bullying?
No, because I was perfectly fine in school. I was doing fine. I was playing sport. You know, I had friends. There wasn't a problem, but it's like I would invent one, and then I'd be like, no, I need to go and be the real me. It's like I would get this like ounce of weird courage that I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I needed to do something.
But like, it's not here. I need to.
Yeah, like I need
get out and
I need to go and start again and be the real me and go places where no one knows me. But then I'd do that and then still be the same, and nothing would change. And then I realised, I did move school, and then 2 months later I wanted to go back.
Were you popular at school?
No, I wasn't popular. So I was like, the go-to insult for me as like a young girl was, you're a man.
Okay.
And
why was that?
I think just because I wasn't super girly.
Right.
I didn't look like a boy, but I wasn't super girly. I played.
I've seen pictures like you did have like the long hair, and you wasn't like.
But it's just always been that, you know, like obviously you know what kids are like. Kids are horrible when they want to be.
Yeah.
And like one of my friends actually from school told me the other day, which I didn't know. They used to say to her in school, like, "Why are you friends with Jess? She's a man." And she used to be like, "What? Like, it's just my mate." But I think it was that because I wasn't a girl who you know wore makeup or was really girly or whatever, overly confident and all that in that way.
And how did you feel when they're saying that? Like
heartbroken.
Really?
Yeah, because it sounds crazy saying that now, obviously, because that's who I am, but no one wants to be misgendered, and you know, I didn't want to be a girl who looked like a man, and I don't want to be a man who looks like a girl. I just want to be me, and it's embarrassing. Like, it's so shameful when someone does that to you. When it used to happen to me, like out on a night out when I was like 18, 19, I'd have a dress and long hair and 6-inch heels, and someone would come up to me in a pub and be like, "Are you a bloke?" And it would just completely break me. Like, it would really break my heart, or, you know, get shouted at in women's toilets. Like, "This is a woman's toilet."
Really?
And you've seen pictures, obviously. Like, I didn't look like a bloke, but
why was something? What do you think it was?
I don't know whether it's just because I'm quite like athletically built, or I'm tall, or I don't know what it is, but there was just something that would make people do that, and people don't realize how damaging that is because it's just so embarrassing. I just wanted to be okay, and I tried so hard to be, you know, like everybody else. I tried so hard to be that girl and be okay and be happy in who I was and wear dresses and do all those things. And And it took me a long time to realise. But when I do look back, I absolutely knew from being a kid.
So how did you come to realise? What was the turning point for you? And I know as well, so the sort of, I guess, a big step in this was coming out as gay first, as a gay female, right?
Yeah.
So you've had lots
I hope I never have to do it again. I'm sick of coming out.
I'm going to say, there's a lot of revelations for the family. So how was that first? I guess that's the first question, because there will be people listening to this, you know, that right now is still a scary thing.
Yeah.
You know, I know that it's a lot more socially acceptable and people generally are just not bothered anymore.
Yeah.
But certainly when we was growing up, I know when I look from then to now, things have changed massively in terms of acceptance. There's obviously still a long way to go.
Yeah.
But how was it for you at the point when you came out? How old were you at that point?
I was 19.
Yeah. So that's still tough,
about
right?
10 years ago, yeah. So trans now is kind of like where gay was 30 years ago.
Got you.
It's like just breaking the ceiling. Whereas gays come so far now, being gay and being out, and it's really a lot more accepted. But so when I was 19, obviously I'd had different mental health issues going on, this anxiety that I didn't really know what it was about, and I made the decision to join the RAF when I was 19. And when I did, we thought we'd hit the nail on the head. Like, this is what I needed, you know.
This is who you are.
This
is
busy.
you started.
I was in a uniform, like I stood tall. I was, it was kind of like a stereotypically masculine role. I was being paid to play rugby, like I was doing all these things. And when I did join, I was suddenly surrounded by all of these gay women who they knew who they were, and they owned who they were, and they weren't really masculine, they weren't really feminine, they were just themselves, and they were in the military, and they played rugby with me, and they didn't dress really girly, they didn't dress really masculine, they just dressed it was just what I needed. And I saw all these people, and I just thought, this is who I am. Like, that's it, that's what it is.
Did you know you was always attractive to girls?
No. So before I joined the RAF, I was sort of going through that stage of like realizing that. But at the time, like you said, 10 years ago, I didn't know a single gay woman in Wigan at all. So that was something that I was battling with as I joined. And then obviously as I got flung into that world, I realized that it's okay, and that there's a world outside of Wigan, and that, you can, it's not all.
Thankfully. No, I'm kidding. Oh, God. I'm getting loads of hate now.
Do you know what I mean, though? But it is. It's a small town mindset, and it's changed a lot. But that's what especially back then. And I sort of then thought, right, well, I'm gonna have to tell mum and dad now. And obviously, like back then, that was a massive thing for me. I was terrified, absolutely terrified, and gathered them around the dining room table, like my mum, my dad, my brother, and my sister, and I was crying my eyes out, because there's always a percentage of you that thinks, what if they don't accept this? And we've always been so close as a family. And I was crying my eyes out. And then my dad was just like, you gay, aren't you?
What, before you said it?
Yeah. And like just said it straight out. And I was like, yeah. But they were like, oh, we've known for ages. We've known before you did.
Right.
And I think they just sort of, knew that. And so that was fine. That coming out was fine. That was really accepting. Obviously there was questions and understanding, and it was easier for me, I think, because I was away in the RAF and I wasn't just in. I think I'd have struggled if I was just been in Wigan. Whereas now, like, there's probably more gay women in Wigan than anything else. So it's crazy. But that was the coming out the first time.
Part one.
Yeah. 10 years prior.
Hey, normally good movies come in trilogies, so there is a third coming at some point.
I mean. This is why I'm worried. So I've just said, like, listen, I'm never coming out again. Just let me I'll wear this and I'll do that. Just leave me be.
But there's still time.
Yeah, there's always time.
Never say never.
Always time.
So then the second time.
So the second time, I spent 4 years in the RAF.
Yeah.
And what I did was I tried to fill a void all the time. So for my own mental health. So whether it was, I'll buy a new car, that'll fix it. I'll buy a house, that'll fix it. I'll join the RAF, that'll fix it. I'll do something else. I would never sit with my own mind. I was always like scared of it. And
so you would be scared to actually just allow the thoughts, question the thoughts, and kind of do the sort of deep internal work, I guess.
Basically, yeah, because I wasn't conscious of the transitioning thoughts yet. I was just I kept going through like bouts of like depression and anxiety, and just didn't want to be on my own. And I was obviously fearing something.
There was something not right. What did you think it was?
I genuinely just thought that I had bad mental health, and I was just anxious. There was always an element of being anxious from being a baby, you know, from having to hold the bottle a certain way when my mum would give it me, and you know, little things,
certain
and,
like character traits, and
just like that little bit of like OCD, that little bit of like it needs to be this way. And I spent 4 years in the RAF, and I was playing loads of rugby, and I was going here, there, and everywhere, and I was busy, and I was proud of what I was doing, and that sort of filled the void for 3 years, whereas a car would do it for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And because I was playing so much rugby at a good level, I was posted to a different job. So I went from being on like a tactical unit flying all over the world every week to being at a desk, basically being an intelligence analyst. And obviously I had to sit with Jess then. And because obviously playing rugby was only like twice a week or whatever, so I was literally just sat at this desk, and it didn't take me very long to deteriorate at all, and I just became really sort of depressed and just back to where I was a long time ago. And luckily I got sent on tour at that point, so I weren't doing it for too long, but I knew that was happening. And I did a tour of Iraq and Cyprus for 4 months, and whilst I was away, I made the decision to leave the military, because I knew that I wasn't okay. Because I'd been in that desk job, it had sent me off. It had sort of sent me off track mentally, and I love the military. I'm so proud of it. But at the time, I was like, I need to be at home. I just need to be with my mum.
Did you tell anyone the reasons why you was leaving?
It was just because of me. Like I still hadn't thought about transitioning.
So you just sort of said, I'm just struggling with my mental health.
Yeah,
I can't do this anymore.
I was just not okay. I couldn't stop crying. I was just in a bad place, and I made the decision to come out. But when you put in your notice in the military, you have to give a year's notice.
Oh wow! So you've still got a year now. You've made this decision. You've committed to leaving.
Yeah. So I did that. Yeah. So I did that, and I came home from tour. And when I came home,
but hang on, how was that year? Like, so I did that year, just like I needed to pop to Tesco's or something. Like that must have been really challenging.
Yeah. So basically, when I came back from tour, you have a few months off anyway, and your head's up a bit because you've come from a different life. And but when I did come back, I literally just didn't leave my mum's side for like it's about 2 months. I just didn't leave her side. I went hairdressing with her. Like I couldn't speak to anybody. I couldn't look at them. Like I didn't want anyone to look at me. I didn't want anyone to speak to me. And I was.
Is your mum a hairdresser?
Yeah, she was.
So it's fine.
She was a mobile hairdresser. Yeah.
As a kid, I used to go. She was a mobile hairdresser. We used to go around all the houses.
Visit all the houses.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing.
I didn't know if you just meant like she just went to do people's hair, but it wasn't a job. We just went.
No.
No, I got you. Yeah. But you felt safe.
I just felt safe next to her because I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't look at anybody. And, you know, I look at those things now and I think, no wonder, like, you hated yourself. No wonder you didn't want anyone to look at you. I remember saying to her, and I was about 24 at this point, I was like, is it because I want to be a man?
Where did that question come from?
I don't know. Well, I would basically say to myself from being really young, please don't anything bad happen. I wouldn't change anything. Please, everything be okay. And I love being a girl. And that was from being like 6, 7 years old. Like I would say these things up to being about 24. Wow. Like just over and over again. Like I wouldn't even be conscious of it. I would just say it. And I look at that now and I think you were trying to like convince yourself that you were happy in who you were. Because I think it was because I loved who I am and I love where I'm from and I love the person I am. But I obviously was not happy being a girl. Right. I knew it.
Yeah.
And I said to her that day, I was like, is it because I want to be a man? Like, is that why I'm so depressed? Is that what's wrong with me? And at that moment, my mum was like, no, like, of course not. No, you're beautiful. You're unique. You know, you're this beautiful athletic woman. Like, you wouldn't be you if you weren't, you know, all these things. And in that moment, that's what we both believed. And that's what that's what I believe. That's what she believed. But then obviously what happened was I suppressed that again. And when I'd made the decision to come out of the military, I'd applied for the prison service. So what happened then was, if you then get a job, like a career prospect, to a career opportunity, sorry, they then allow you to come out of the military because they don't want to stop you getting that to move forward.
To like hold you back.
And then obviously I had a brand new void to fill because I just joined a brand new job,
distraction,
brand new uniform, all these new people,
Yeah.
you know, this fascinating job, obviously. And I loved it. And I thought I was sorted again, you know, because the prison service was like this happy medium for me between being in the military and being in uniform, but being able to live at home and having that sort of balance. And that sort of covered it for like another couple of years. I loved the job, you know. I was good at the job. I'd come from a military background. I was, you know, feisty, but I had a laugh, and I could do the job because I had life experience. So I loved it. Obviously, in a prison environment, if you're in a bad place mentally, it is not the best place to be. Like, if you want to start a fight or start an argument or take your anger out or cause carnage, you can very easily. And it can become a very dangerous place to be if you're not in the right mindset. Yeah. And what I didn't realize was I was always like feisty. I always never like took shit, but I would always have a laugh and stuff like that, because you've got to have that balance, especially as a female prison officer. But what I didn't realize was I was getting just all feisty, like all angry all the time, and I was taking my emotions out on prisoners, and that started to put me and, you know, my colleagues in danger, because what I didn't realize looking at it was I was absolutely just suicidal. Because if you're going to put yourself in those situations in a prison where you don't care how it goes, you don't care if it kicks off, you don't care how much danger you're in, you're
that
suicidal.
Can escalate very quick.
Like, it's just a suicide mission, because you just don't know what could happen. And
did you feel suicidal in the sense of think about ending your life?
At that point, no. But looking at my behaviour and my mindset, I was, because otherwise I would never put myself in those situations. Do you know what I mean?
So at what point did you think, I know that I need to be male and I need to tell people? So I got pulled in after about 6 months of being like this. I got pulled in by my governor, who had always had a lot of respect for me in the past. Had always said I was a good officer and whatever, and she pulled me in, told me about all the complaints she'd received from prisoners and staff about how I was being. Right. And at the time, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm doing my job. You know, you've got people there who run away from incidents and who don't stick up and da-da-da. And I was... So you were just really defensive about it.
Absolutely fuming that I'd even been brought in. And she read this complaint out to me. I don't know if you've heard me say this before, but she read a complaint out to me from this prisoner who'd put it in. And it basically said... And this is like a 6-foot prisoner, like twice the size of me, you know, especially at the time. And it said, if I could choose between being in a shark tank with a shark or being on the prison landing with Jaxon Feeley, I'd choose the shark tank every time. Wow. And Vicky, my governor, was like, this is not, like, it's not okay. And obviously I was like, are you fucking serious? You're taking this? What are you talking about? This is ridiculous, you know. Went absolutely mental. She started talking to me about getting me a mentor and doing all this, and I'm in the mindset of there's so many more officers who aren't doing a good job, and you know, I was just like fuming at the whole thing. What were the specific incidents that made that particular person prefer to be with a shark than you? Like, I mean, I didn't really speak to him after it. I mean, did you bite them or? Like, do you know what I mean? I think it was just. Like I said, obviously, you have a balance between having a laugh and saying no when it's no. Whereas, you know, instead of having a laugh and saying, do us a favour and put your flip-flops on, I'd like hit the roof, go mad. That'd put his defence up. That'd end up in a scrap. Or just like a short temper. We'd end up like wrapping him up, and then he'd get in. Do you know what I mean? Right, it would just escalate. And then obviously for staff as well, like, oh, what are you doing again? Like, I can't be asked, like, restraining someone every 10 minutes, you know, whereas I was just ready all the time to go. So I'm guessing that's why. I don't know. I've never seen him since. But I stormed out of the office, and, you know, she jokes about it now and says, you know, you took the door off the hinges and blah, blah, blah. And she really, like, beats herself up about it now, because she called me in the next day, and I was really upset at that point, because after I stormed out, I broke down. Like, I was devastated because I knew what was wrong. Yeah. And I knew it was coming to a point where I had to accept this. And she pulled me in the next day, and I was really upset. And she was like, what is it? Like, what's going on? Like, I know there's something wrong. And I said to her in that moment, I was like, there is, but I can't tell you. Like, I can't tell you right now. I hadn't even told my family, like, I can't. And she was like, right, well, you know, we'll do this. We'll get you a mentor. We'll move you. We'll do all these things for you just to like make sure you're all right. And I'm there just thinking, yeah. Like, I'm going off sick. Like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. And so obviously she was putting all these plans in place, and I just went off sick the next day. And I thought then, like, what do I do here? Like, I didn't want to die. I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to live anymore.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And I've always said to everyone my entire life, when it feels scary to jump, that's exactly when you jump. Otherwise, you stay in the same place your entire life. And it was my time to take my own advice and go, I have to do this. Like, I have to do this. It's do this or I die. So what is it? I don't want to die. I don't want to leave my family. I don't want to leave my life. But I can't do this anymore. I can't live as Jess anymore. I'm stunted. I don't want to achieve anything else as Jess. I don't want to meet anybody. I don't want to be in a relationship. I don't want to do any of those things anymore. I cannot be Jess anymore. And so I obviously made the decision to tell my parents, and my dad put his foot in it again. So I gathered them around the table, and they all started guessing because they obviously knew I had something to say. So they were like, oh, you're pregnant? I was like, no. You're getting a puppy? No. And then my dad, like, as a complete joke, was like, you're not having a sex change, are you? You know, and my dad's like Peter Kay. He's just like, you know, just tries to like have a laugh all the time and whatever. And he did not expect it in the slightest. He was like, you're not having a sex change, are you? And I just looked at him and I was like, shit, like, yeah, I am. And he just went yellow, like, he was just like, I might as well have punched him in the face. He was just like, what? And the only person who'd had like a slight inkling was my mum. And even she says now, like, even though I sort of knew it was coming, it made me think, oh my God, like, she's actually reached a point now where if she doesn't do this, she's not going to be here anymore. Like, she's going to do this. And with parents, like, which is I try and talk about a lot, because, you know, people, especially people who are going to transition, need to understand and recognize that a transition doesn't just affect me.
Yeah.
It affects everyone around me. It affects my family. It affects my friends. It affects my colleagues. And with parents, especially when you tell them something like that, the main thing that hits them is fear. It's fear of abuse, fear of what's going to happen to you, fear of what people are going to say. And as much as someone doesn't die, you have to grieve that person. Yeah. You know, you have to grieve Jess. I've had to grieve Jess. You know, they gave birth to a daughter. They named that child. You know, they had thoughts and dreams about that daughter, and they've been saying she and her and Jess for 28 years. Like, it's not fair for me to just expect them to just boom change instantly. Yeah. And, you know, in my experience, you know, some trans people like to think of that person as dead and don't like that name to be mentioned. But in my experience, I didn't want to kill Jess. I wanted to bring Jess with me. I just couldn't have her be the image. And I wanted so much from my mum and dad and my sister and my brother to just understand that I was still exactly the same. I just couldn't be that image anymore. And it was difficult. Like, it was my dad, especially when I first told him like that, he was like, well, we're going to have to leave Wigan. Really? Like, I'm going to end up punching everybody. Because he thought that I would get so much abuse. And he was just like, he was angry. He didn't want to let go of his little girl. You know, they've been through every emotion possible, from anger to grief to upset, you know, all these things, thinking, oh my God, like, what if this goes wrong? What if it's the wrong decision? You know, what's going to happen to you? Like, what if you're not accepted? What if you get all this abuse and all these things?
Where are they today with it?
Incredible.
Because it's only been, what, 2 years?
Yeah. So basically for the first few months, it was really hard. And I had to turn around at one point and say, listen, it's either a dead daughter or a living son. Like, it's, I'm your child. Like, what is it? I can't do this. I have to, if you want me to be here and I want to be here, I have to do this. I'm still your child, and I think that started to really hit home. And I said to them, I don't care if you make mistakes or say she or Jess for the rest of my life. I don't care. Just try. Just show me that you're trying. Just show me that you accept this and accept me for who I am. That's all I care about, because it's okay to make mistakes. Like, it's okay. You've been saying that for however long. The human brain is not just going to go, yeah, sound. If you tell me your name's Dave now, I'm not going to know what to say. Like, I'm going to keep calling you Matt and be like, oh shit, sorry. Because, and I've only been saying that for an hour. Yeah. So it's...
when you and they've had your whole life
having
with
that
them.
Understanding that they have to go through that process, and by going through that process with me and by me talking to them at every avenue and doing all the things I'm doing, whether that's within the media or on TikTok or whatever else, and the lives it's changing, and they've watched me gain the light back in my eyes and gain the want to wake up in the morning again. Because when I first came out, I didn't realise, but I became more suicidal than I'd ever been, because my family were all going through this. I was going through this, I'd come out, so I had to be Jax now. Yeah. So I'd lost everything that Jess was. I'd lost that identity of this ex-military rugby playing gay woman that I'd built. Yeah. But I didn't know who Jax was yet. And, I still looked very much like Jess. I still had boobs. I'd just shaved my head. I hadn't started hormones or anything like that. So I was just in this horrendous in-between bit of feeling like a complete freak. And I just thought, like, no one's ever going to want to be with me again. No one's ever going to be my friend. Like, what am I doing? I'm off work. I'm off sick. Still no one knew. What am I going to do with my life? My family are like in despair. Like, this is awful. And that is when I was like seriously having suicidal thoughts, thinking, what's going on? And everyone says to me now, we were really naive to think that when you came out, well, that's it. You've done it now. We accept it. You should be happy.
But it's the beginning of a whole different journey,
But it's just like, it was so terrifying to just be trans anyway. And I spent a few weeks.
What about the actual physical side of it? Obviously, you've transitioned physically, how you look and so on. Yeah. What was that process like?
So basically, to go through it on the NHS, it's now up to a 6-year waiting list for you to be booked in with a psychiatrist or consultant to be assessed, to then ascertain whether you have gender dysphoria. So people can't wait that long.
What's gender dysphoria, just to be clear? What is that term?
For me, it is not aligning with the gender I was assigned at birth. Yeah. So I was assigned female at birth. Although I have feminine traits, I probably embrace my femininity more now because I'm comfortable with myself, but I didn't identify personally with presenting and being female. So you have to obviously be assessed on how much you understand that. Is that what you need? Do you need counselling? Can you be referred to hormones? Do you want surgery? Because people see transitioning as like a full transition. Yeah. And not some people will just take hormones and not have surgery. Some people will have some surgery and not take hormones. Some people will have everything in the world done because they just do not feel okay. And it's massively about that person and how that person feels and what gives them a sense of dysphoria. And for me, it was massively my chest, because it was, it could put me in a dangerous situation if anyone noticed, or I was like crippling my ribs, like strapping them down, and things like that. So it's a process, and it's basically like going through a male puberty. But I was lucky enough to save the money and go through private healthcare. But it still took me over a year to get an appointment because the demand is so high, and it's probably a lot more now. Like, this was 2 years ago. And I went through all of that and was diagnosed and started taking testosterone. And that basically just sends you on a little journey of going through puberty again. And I had top surgery in Miami. So I've spent about 15 grand on transitioning up to now. So every situation I came across that I had to overcome in the first 12 months was, well, I do this or I die. So when I made the decision to go back to work after serving 3 years as a female prison officer, it was terrifying. Like, I would rather be on the plane to Iraq than walk back into a prison, because my mum was terrified. You know, she was like, she didn't say this at the time, but she was like, what's going to stop 5 prisoners dragging you in a cell and raping you and trying to prove you're still a woman? Because the danger's there anyway as a prison officer, but as a trans prison officer with a subject that, you know, still a lot of people don't agree with. You know, I get a lot of abuse online. I get more abuse on TikTok than I do in the prison.
I mean, I think for most people, the idea of just walking into a prison full stop is one of the most terrifying things. Whether you're going in for whatever reason, even if you're just going in to visit, it's a scary place for most people.
Yeah. Tell me to shut up if I'm just talking at you, by the way, because I'm just trying
You
to
know,
tell you.
I actually want to say, like, thank you for being so open, and the courage you obviously have displayed throughout this journey is the thing that I hope will give a lot of people strength listening. What was the reality of going into the place you'd rather be in, going to Iraq?
You know what? It's that is another aspect, along with the dogs, that saved my life, because I needed my friends back. I needed a life back. I needed to build my confidence up. I needed to build an identity as Jax.
I guess it comes back to that idea you said of when you don't want to jump, you have to. It's that idea of going into the scariest thing, confronting that, and then actually finding acceptance, I guess.
Yeah,
and getting a life.
You're not growing, you're not living, are you? So I walked back into the prison, and as soon as I walked in, I went in with the attitude of, I'm just going to take everyone on this journey with me.
Yeah,
like my
just
family,
educate people.
Because I didn't have a clue what all of this was before I had to embark on it. So how on earth is anyone else going to know what to say, how to be, how to accept this? And I walked back through the gate, and someone called me Jax, and I didn't know they were talking to me, because I'd never been called Jax. I was still very much Jess at home, you know. And from that moment, I was just like, right, I'm just going to do this, and I'm going to do it properly. And I made it clear to everyone, like, it's okay to make mistakes. You know, I had, like, a nurse called me miss by accident in the first few weeks, and then burst out crying. And I was like, it's okay. Like, and I'm taking people aside and trying to talk to them about things and just say, listen, ask me whatever you want. Like, it's fine. As long as no one comes at me in a malicious way, I will talk about anything, because like I said to you before, if we don't start having these conversations, how is anyone going to learn?
It's intention, isn't it? What's the intention? If someone's being malicious, like you say, that's something very, very different.
These women were having a conversation on reception, I think, and I don't know why or what, but they were talking about gender. And this woman was saying, my dad was there, and this woman was like, well, I think if you're born that way, that's what you are, and blah, blah. Not being malicious, just
giving her
obviously opinion. Never affected her life, you know.
Never had the experience,
Yeah. And my dad was there listening, thinking, oh, and he went to one of the HR women who knew, and he was like, what do I do here? Because if I go and tell her now, she's going to want the ground to swallow her up.
Yeah.
And he's watched how I deal with things, and I've always said, I don't need to jump down people's throats. Like, I'll give you the information. If you still want to be an asshole, you're an asshole. But if you take that information and go, actually, and change your mindset, and then don't do that again, then we can do that. That's great. That's how you change mindsets. So this woman was like, I'll go and tell her, like, it's all right. So my dad went up to her later on in the day and was like, you all right now, love? This woman burst out crying. Like, Terry, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean it, and blah, blah, blah. And my dad, the person who wanted to leave Wigan, was like, don't worry about it. Like, it's all right. Like, go and listen to his podcast, go on his YouTube, go and do this. And
make sure you subscribe.
Yeah. And
number one fan there.
Yeah. And he did that. And he come home and told me, and I was like, have you any idea what you've just done? I was like, you've just changed a mindset.
Yeah.
And by changing one, you change 100.
That's how you change the world,
because
right? One at a
she'll
time.
go home and she'll tell people, and she'll show people, and that will have affected her because you touched her emotion.
Yeah. Let's do this. Let's do a couple of let's ask some of the controversial questions.
Okay.
So if there's somebody watching right now that has that mindset that is, you know, your gender is your gender, and people who want to transition, then they've got mental health problems and they need more help with their mental health, they shouldn't be changing. What would you say to that person?
Come and say that when it's your child. As soon as it affects their life, which it will, because the world's changing, people are having the courage to be who they are and accept, and, you know, at some point it will impact their life. And when it does, and it hits your emotion, and you're faced with a child saying it's either a dead one or a living one, what do you do then? Because
what if they argue we need to get better help for their mindset and their mental health, and they still think, yeah, I get it's emotional, I get it's tough, but the answer isn't to transition. The answer is to overcome those problems.
But then you'll always have someone who will be struggling with the mental health, because like we said before, you can push it down. If there's a pipe and two endings, you push the water down, it's just going to come out in a different way. So you're going to have, whether it's your child or your friend or your wife or whatever, these people are going to be depressed and at points suicidal because they're not dealing with the real issue. Unless you dig and dig and dig and look in the mirror and tear yourself apart and go, what is it that I need to change? What do I not like? What is making me feel like this? Unless you do that, that's never, ever, ever going to go away. I tried to make it go away for a long time and it won't. But I think it's just as important to tell the people transitioning to allow those people the time and the space to learn and understand and grow, because you can't just go, right, I'm this now.
Accept it.
Yeah.
They've got to process it. They've got to have their own emotions.
Yeah, because people transitioning, it affects everybody else, like we said before. And if you allow, if you've never met someone who's transitioned before, if you allow today to, it will change you.
Yeah.
Because that's why I'm so passionate about the butterfly, because people only see the beauty of a butterfly. They don't realize everything that it had to go through to achieve that. And when you understand everything that it had to go through to achieve that, and for me now, the people who see how much happier I am, how much more comfortable I am, they have a happy child back, they're motivated and ambitious again, then that makes you realize that was the right decision. But everything takes time.
Yeah.
It's not an overnight process.
What about how many genders there are? Because I'll be honest, this is something for me, I've not looked into a lot, but I know there's a lot of debate and conversation around this. For me personally, I just know it as there's male and female, that's it. But I also understand there's now a lot more nuance to that. And I'm interested in what your thoughts are in terms of what is people's choice and belief versus what is scientific, biological. Where do you stand on that?
So, sex and gender are different.
Okay.
So you've got your biological sex. So you're either assigned male or female at birth, or on occasion people are intersex. But for me, I was assigned female at birth. So that is my biological sex. I can never say I wasn't assigned female at birth. I absolutely was.
So when you say assigned, do you mean just somebody said it, or you physically?
That is what I was born as. So the universe assigned me female biology.
Got you. Yeah.
And that was what I was born as. But gender identity is everything else.
So that's more about feelings,
that is
opinions,
how you feel, how you present, in every way, shape or form. The human being that you become is your gender identity. So gender expression, for example, is a spectrum. You will have people who their gender expression is really masculine. They might be a man or they might be a woman, but their gender expression is really masculine. Yeah. You might have the other way around, where a man or a woman and their expression is really feminine. The majority of people are really like sort of in the middle, like a little bit either way. Some people change throughout feel differently depending on the situation they're in, or the environment they're in, or the people they're around.
Is that kind of like what we see with like Sam Smith, where he's saying it's sort of like, is it gender neutral?
Yeah, so he identifies as non-binary, so he doesn't identify as one specific gender. It's hard. It's hard because it doesn't come naturally off the tongue. Yeah. Saying they, them, it doesn't come naturally off the tongue. So it's very difficult to you have to really think about how you're saying. And I can't speak on behalf of them because that's not how I identify. But in terms of every other gender, I'm not clued up myself, because that's not something that I've ever gone to look down.
Like you said
and
before,
I understand that it's confusing.
Yeah.
The world is still trying to come to terms with trans, non-binary, that whole, any other gender beyond that, I don't have a clue about, to be honest. I just think that we need to get rid of the boxes.
Yeah.
Because society wants to put you in a box. Whatever you do, if you're doing a podcast, you're a podcaster.
You're a podcaster.
Well, why are you being a model?
Yeah.
You're
can't
a podcaster.
do both.
Yeah. Whereas just get rid of the fucking box and be happy. Like, why does anyone care?
Completely agree.
Why does anyone give a shit? Like, just let people be. Whether they identify as he, she, they, or whatever. Are they hurting you?
I think the problem comes when people feel it's being forced on them. But I think this is just a guess, probably such a small minority of people. I think the majority of people are not like that. They're talking like you and I are, which is live and let live, have respect. But I think that what happens when we see TikToks and social media, they go for the extreme narratives, and those are what get pushed out, right?
And the thing is, people think that it's being forced down people's throats because they don't see why we need to talk about it. For a cisgender white male, right, their existence has never been questioned.
Yeah, it's just always been a
You've
part of
society. You've never been in danger for being straight white male, right? You're never under threat of being murdered. You're not under threat of being abused. You're not under threat of your existence being wiped out. You're not under threat of people cancelling your healthcare, people not employing you for this and that. We have to talk about it in the right way, because there is pride for a reason. You know, people are still being murdered. Trans people get murdered on a daily basis or abused on a daily basis. People on TikTok tell me I should have killed myself. I need electrocuting. You know, and what's wrong with the world? Whatever else. And that's why we need to talk about it, to raise that representation, because visibility is the thing that shows people that their life is worth living. Yeah. So if you can't see it, I can't believe it. Yeah. When I was a little girl, there was no professional female footballers. So that was never a dream that I could have.
Whereas now,
it was impossible.
Yeah.
Whereas now, you know, they won the Euros. Little girls can watch that and go, that can be my career. I can get paid and be a famous world football club, you know, professional footballer. Yeah. And that reassures them that your dream is valid. You can be who you want to be. So the thing with transgender especially is, it's had so much clumsy representation over the years, where people hear the word transgender and they just think man in a dress straight away, because all they've ever seen in the media is the prostitute who gets killed, or the obvious big burly man in a dress being the trans woman or whatever else. So the more there is more well represented, you know, visibility within the media to show that these people can live a normal life, and they're not a threat to your kids. They're not a threat to anything. They just want to live how they feel they are. You know, if I hadn't done this, I wouldn't be here anymore. So is that what should happen? Is there something wrong with me? Should I just not live because I feel like that? It's about trying to educate people in the right way. And I think if you can touch people's emotion and give them the information and let them go away with that and learn about that and open their mind a little bit and realize that these people just want to live. Like, I'm still the exact same person. I'm just happier and more motivated and have more to give. And that can never be a negative. So I think when people go, well, you know, people say it to me, you know, I'm fine with what you wear, but shut up about it. Well, no, because there's someone at home who's still thinking, it's better if I kill myself. Yeah.
So I'm going to keep speaking about it for them.
Yeah, because just to be able to see me, whether that's on this, whether that's on, you know, a TV show, whether that's in a magazine, it goes, oh my God, I can live. I should live. I'm valid. I'm okay. I'm important. It's not better if I kill myself. And, you know, whether it's my parents or my friends or whoever, they're not always right. And that's the person living who's happy and whatever else. And that will reassure them that their life is worth something. So, yeah, I'm going to keep talking about it. If you don't want to listen, don't fucking watch.
Jax, amazing. I mean, we've got to wrap up. But I don't think there's a better way to end it than that. If you didn't like it, fuck off. I could honestly talk to you for so much longer, but I just want to be respectful of the time. And even just like we spoke before, like prisons fascinate me. I imagine there's so many stories and so much, you know, but we'll have to wrap it up. Just before we finish, Jax, thank you so much. Yeah, we'll get you back. But thank you. Like I said earlier, I just feel like, as you say in there, by being so open and sharing your story, I'm sure, even for people that are not in a position wanting to transition, I'm sure this has been a really inspiring episode. A, to educate them maybe, but B, I think one of the biggest things I remember about this interview is courage. I think like the level of courage you had to display to truly live your life authentically is incredible, and
I appreciate that. Thank
massive
you.
respect for that. If people want to follow more of your journey, where can they check you out online?
Jaxon Feeley on Instagram and TikTok, and Live Your Truth, which is a new podcast.
Yeah. Amazing, and best luck with everything with Rambo as well. Keep us
Thank
posted
you.
on that. Just before we finish, the final question that I ask all my guests is, Jax, what is your definition of success?
Living a life that is 100% authentic to you, because if you're not authentic in yourself, nothing else in your life will be authentic either, because friendship, career, your family relationship, whatever it is, they will only ever get 90% of you, because there's always going to be a little bit missing. And you are I always say you are the revolution that you're waiting for.
Jax, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.